Welcome to our new Social Impact Coffee. Today we have the pleasure and the pride to host Paloma Bernal. She has made along her career lots of different roles, but now she's very focused in investigations. She has conducted impact evaluations in the World Bank. She has been also working in Washington, D.C. and in Malaysia. Also, she's a teacher online. She is teaching in the Spanish University Juan Carlos I. And at Georgetown University, she's still teacher, and she is a professor of impact evaluation. So her career is very focused on impact evaluation. That's the theme of the Impact Coffee we have today. Studying social impact from research is the topic that we are going to develop today. And as per her most current role, she is senior economist at the Ministry of International Affairs of Costa Rica. So she's advising important countries in their development through her evaluations and research in impact evaluation. Okay, Paloma, do you want to add anything to your CV?
No, but thank you so much for your nice, introduction to me. So I'm really, astonished about what you mentioned. But nevertheless, it's my priority is development. So that's why it's so engaged on these things.
Yeah, this is good to say. So you've been motivated all your career for development, and this is such a good impulse that's why you've reached so far. Okay, then I have a lot of questions to make, so I better start now to make the Impact Coffee short and very impactful. So I know you led a report at the World Bank that looked at the reasons for the lack of scale among entrepreneurs in the developing world. This is a main issue there. And it's very interesting that you focus on that. Can you tell us a little more about this study, why the need arose, what results you expect to obtain?
Yeah. So my job at the World Bank is the application of robust experimental research methodologies to help to provide a better understanding about the mechanisms that create jobs, increase the performance of the businesses, and also create productivity. We test the theory of change for which training programs and matching grants can create jobs. And we recognize during the past that there are methodological flaws that are hampered to achieve enough statistical evidence about what causes the effects of we are searching, that is the job creation. What's happening is that in hard science, we have rules like X cause Y. For example, I don't know, the water boils at the temperature of 212 Fahrenheit, or the melting point is at 32 Fahrenheit. But in social science, it's not like that. We work with humans, and we need to create more often the experimental level for knowing better what is the impact evaluation about the projects that we are doing. If it's truly and distinctly and ambiguously and undoubtedly and almost unerringly that the project that we are going to provide is the reason for which we can provide jobs. And why is so important? Because we need to learn what is the recipe. What is the recipe to create prosperity? And economic development drives jobs, but also jobs drives development. So literature starts to say to show strong evidence that small and medium-sized enterprises concentrated most of the job creation in the world. SMEs creates 60% of job creation. And the good thing is that the unique capacity of SMEs happens all over the world in all the continents. And that's a good thing to know, because we can provide global solutions, right? But what are the gaps? What does differentiate job creation on the world between developed and developing countries? So it's not easy, because we didn't find yet, as I mentioned, enough evidence to know what is the solution. And this is one of the most challenging questions in this era, right? Because we are faced some changes in the future, or events like disasters or
pandemics
and violence. We face also the technologies disruption, the new era of technologies that people are started to be worried about what's happening with the jobs. So it means that but perhaps there is something different between the developing countries and developed countries. We face now the pandemic, as you mentioned, and we realize that technologies, it's playing, a full differentiation aspect about the recovery. So thanks to the technologies, we started to be virtual as we are today, you and I, and developing countries has that gap. But it's not only that. In terms of job creation, we have to think about what's happening with SMEs. Because SMEs, is true that they have that capacity to create jobs, but it's true that they have they encounter standing low productivity performance and continue to face issues regarding to access to finance. And the central dilemma that they have, the SMEs, that they are very fragile. They are sometimes in the process of grow or die. And because their SMEs are credit constrained, they are hampered to increase the production of outputs. And the only way to scale up in their production is to achieve a big amount of capital or invest in intense technology. But with this constraint, the constraint of access to finance, if SMEs survive, are involved on producing with subsistence technology and scarce resources. In this scenario, they bound to maintain low productivity and very limited capacities. That reality that we see sometimes some tiny shops that stay tiny the full life, and they don't grow. They don't die, but they stay in that position. And with that limited capacity of production, unless they jump up to higher productivity level with a huge injection of capital that bootstrap their capacity to produce with more employees and technologies, perhaps they cannot survive. So it's the moment of jumping, or sometimes they are able to stay tiny, but most of them die. So we cannot afford that the reduction of business survival, especially with the pandemic. And here is where there is truly a huge gap between developed and developing countries. In developed countries, SMEs are more likely to stay in business. If they start small, they are more likely to grow. And if they grow faster. And in developed countries as well, they have likely more access to finance, to technologies, and cheaper technologies, and knowledge. And that's why we have to be focused in developing countries to help them to achieve that capacity. But you will be surprised that we do not have enough evidence to support the theory of change. What is the mechanism to help them to grow? So what I did in my career is to try to wrap up the challenges in testing impact evaluation results in job creation policies into 4 Ps. And I think it can describe well what's happening and why it's so difficult to test that. Why? Because I respect very much what other researchers has done before, but there are things that we have to improve, and there are methodological dreams that we have to achieve to see why it's possible and how it's possible to create jobs, and where it's possible to create jobs. How to target better this problem. I think this problem is paradoxical, because we have to find the relationship between X and Y. What is the thing that is going to grow job creation. And sometimes there is something in between. We are going to create job if before we create something else that helps to the firms to get that capacity to create jobs. So we perhaps there is not a direct effect. We need an indirect effect. We have to, it's like teaching children, you want that they eat the food, create a game and they will eat the food, right? So we have to create this kind of game, and an indirect way to create jobs. There are also relationships that has moderation effects. So in research, what's happening with the impact evaluations that have been done before is that to date, the relationship between X and Y, matching grants provide finance to the firms and create jobs, has positive effects, negative effects, positive and negative effects at the same time, null effects, and also inconclusive statistical effects. And why it's so paradigmatic, this kind of relationship? Sometimes it's because this problem is multifaceted, multidisciplinary, multi-layer, multi-trend topic. And it's not easy to see that relationship between the variables. And what it's happening sometimes is that we don't find a unique relationship. Sometimes we need the if relationship. Is we are going to create jobs if something is created. If we reducing taxes, if we reduce bureaucracy, if we reduce the barriers to new SMEs, and that is why we need to learn about the if conditional thing. And perhaps that's the reason for that kind of different results in different projects. We also have to find out other relationships that are perhaps the problem of to solve the problem of job creation. It's linked with a nesting problem. A nesting problem means that we have like different bounds. For example, entrepreneurs, firms, sector, industries, and countries, and as other problems happening, for example, in education. Sometimes 1 hour of study for the students, it's more profitable if they have a good teacher or they are involved in a good school. So the problems are nested. The student is nested in a class, and the class is nested in the school. So with the job creation could happen the same. Employees are nested in firms and sectors, in industries, and in countries, and that's why perhaps we have different results in different research. It's not only paradoxical, it's also pivotal, because it's true that job creation in SMEs happens all over the world, but there are some countries that are increasing job creation and others are decreasing job creation. So we have this pivotal thing that happens in different ways. It's also paradigmatic because within that environment, in the same country, we have trends of job creation and job destruction. For example, Bulgaria has increases of jobs for males, but in females, the job creation is decreasing. In Vietnam, for example, it's very stable for males, but for females, it's decreasing. And in Bahrain, to see 3 different scenarios, job creation is very high for males, but it's stable, and is very low for females. And it is stable as well, but the gap is huge between male and females. So we have paradigmatical situations, and it's paradigmatical also for different sectors, because there are job creations in some sectors, and especially with technology disruptions, but we are going to face job destruction in others. And it's not only paradigmatical, we have to learn about parallel effects. So it's true that we focus on job creation, but we have to refocus also in job destruction. So we have to find the mechanisms to create jobs, but we have to understand the mechanisms that create barriers to jobs. So, and not only that, as a methodological dream that I mentioned, I would like to see in the literature the match between the aspects that create jobs in terms of the individual's opinion, but in terms of employees' opinions. And look at this paradox. In Chile, two different reports, one made with the opinions of individuals and the other with the employees, has opposite results. So we can conclude with that paradoxical things, it's difficult to conclude something about this, but it's possible to say that there are lessons to learn, for example, from the pandemic in terms of job creation, job destruction, business survival, and let's see what's happened with this aspect that is so challenging for everybody.
Yeah, super interesting. So, although I understand that social science is not like maths or physics, I also see that your hypothesis here in this research was that job creation is made through SMEs because they are the one that are like making the economies grow, and the fact that the developing SMEs, developing world SMEs, are not reaching a volume, a scale that is important enough to grow rapidly and grow more. This is the main problem you see. So the results of this, because you were saying something about granting or matching investments at the same time with grants could be a solution, is that the first, let's say, result, probably not scientifically proof, that you think is that you're getting from this research, or is something else?
I think we are close to the right programs that makes to create jobs. I think in terms of training, it's difficult sometimes because it's so personal. So training, imagine it depends of the quality of the teacher, the way that is teaching, to adapt to the public that you are teaching. But we are close to say that it's not about teach SMEs how to do the accountancy. It's something is deeply in the sense of what does being an entrepreneur mean? You know, it means to be less adverse at risk, to face with the bureaucracy, to overcome barriers, to lead a team, and this kind of things. Really, it's universal, and that's why we feel that this is important. I think there are sometimes problems to analyze different aspects. So training is an action, it's a policy, it's also per se an experiment, and has to be analyzed individually, but also with matching grants. And that's the problem, that when in a science, the problem is that every time you have different programs, you have to realize that you have to duplicate and multiply the efforts in terms of research. So we need a sample with that we only focus on providing the training, another sample that provides jointly the training with the matching grants, another sample that they only benefit from the matching grants, and a sample that how to prosper this sample without any of this help. And with those four different programs, we can check what is better. And the result is that there are synergies. When you provide someone with the capacity of the capital and the knowledge, the training, there is growing faster that is separately. And that's the beauty of these things, that you can see, okay, the combination of those programs, it's beneficial or not. The problem is that in research, sometimes we do not have a robust methodology, because, for example, life is hard, and providing these programs is hard. It needs that the person that provides the program has an understanding what is doing with those programs. We have to allocate the budget separately and create 4 accountabilities, right? For those that we allocate 4 budgets and allocate also the beneficiaries, the person that is teaching, when is provided the finance, synchronize the force at the same time. And that's why it's so difficult to prove these things, because it's difficult to generate 4 projects at the same time with the same program. So it has a lot of difficulties. This happens with the vaccination right now. So we have to test the vaccines in different ages and to see how it works better. So we need more than one experiment. We need many experiments to see if everybody could benefit from the vaccines. It's the same way.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very, very interesting. And I would like to know what kind of businesses or small firms were you working with, to have an example to imagine what kind of, maybe in developing countries, SMEs that you've been working with. I would really like you to tell us about some example you really like, or the one that you see when we did that with matching, granting. It works very well. So something that you really want to tell us in terms of more detailed projects.
Thanks for the question, because it's really interesting to say, how we provide this kind of help. If we do an experiment, the law for providing this kind of evidence is that the sample has to be randomized. So it means that everybody has the same opportunity. We have to announce this program to everybody to do the same, to provide the same accessibility to the programs. So it means that we don't select anybody per se. So it's like put it in a box and take one firm, because all of them has the same possibilities to participate. Once you have that sample that is randomized, so it means that all the sectors that are in that project could be benefit from that. We have to create the same similarities. So we have to match like a twin for the one that get the grant. A similar one has to do not get the grant. And looks that is very cruel, right? Because you are in the same box with the same possibility, with the same characteristics that the other, and one is going to get the grant and the other one not. So it is not that like a merit status. It's like to see if similar firm is growing faster or lower than the other one that did not get the grant, that the other one that get the grant but not the training, and the other one that is similar, that get the training but not get the grant. So that in the project that I work with, for example, it was in Pakistan, in the north of Pakistan. We had the problem that they suffer floods, they suffer earthquakes, they suffer violence. And it's true that, climate change is not differentiate to anybody, but violence differentiates. And usually, Pakistan is not a country for that women entrepreneurs are in the same proportion that male entrepreneurs. there, for example, in our project, we get 3,800 applicants, and only 200 were females entrepreneurs. The other 3,600 were male entrepreneurs. But you can be surprised that everybody was targeted by the climate change, but especially for violence, almost women were the target. So there are inequalities, and the project doesn't solve the inequalities of life, doesn't solve the inequalities that we have to face. We have to incorporate that difficulties to provide the same, better opportunities to everybody, especially those that are more in need. And it's quite interesting question, because in this area of Pakistan, there are industries that are small shops, other industries where services, other industries where carpets, other industries that were in wool, others were designers, some were manufacturers, firms, only few export and import products. And the good thing about studying different sectors and different locations is that you learn more and you disaggregate more variables that could be important for future projects. For example, being in an urban area for the companies, you are more likely to survive when you get a grant or you get a training, because you are more connected with the market. Being more connected also by internet provides other better partners, not only access to market, also better partners. And that's it wasn't a study before, but we started to study these variables because are truly relevant, right? And for example, in another project in Algeria, we started to analyze something that is, the pandemic make the problems even worse. So we are talking in Pakistan about job destruction, right? Job creation, job destruction. But the panorama right now, it's even worse. We are on risk that the business could disappear. So that is it's something that the economy has destroyed. And the good thing about the pandemic is that the pandemic didn't destroy the assets. So the assets are intact. We have the people, most of the people, right? We lose a lot of people in the world, and we feel very pain. But there's still the knowledge is there, the people is there, and the industry exists. So we didn't lose anything in terms of, it's not like a earthquake that destroyed the firm. So it's the market that has changed. And we don't know yet how big is the change. And that's why it's so important that the governments started to do policies to maintain businesses, to maintain employees, to maintain to see if the market is still there. If there is not, if we can reduce that uncertainty, because we have to face that development create jobs and jobs create development. So we cannot stop the machine, because it's going to make the things even worse. So that's a really key things, that we are lucky that we can maintain perhaps the same situation once we achieve a moment of less uncertainty. And it's not only the policies that the government is made, is to see how countries that do not have many resources to provide policies to remote areas, to small SMEs, and with less access with information, less access to technologies, and they survive thanks that they cooperate. Humans are wonderful in these things. We do amazing things, right? They have the willingness to say, okay, my cars are stopped in the garage, but and you are specialized in doing foods. I'm going to provide you my assets to help you to provide and deliver the foods. And the good thing about that is that not only the restaurant survive, also the other person, the person that helped to the other. So that's something that is beautiful to see, that the humans, we are doing every day, and we start the day saying, okay, what could we do better, right?
Oh, we are finishing, and I really want to stop in here because it's such
my God.
Yeah, but we will have another coffee because there are more questions we need to cover. But for today, I think we get very deep into this virtuous circle of jobs create development, development creates jobs that I love. And if you add training to this circle, it becomes bigger and bigger. So I think this is so good. And on the other hand, I really want to take away from you that there has not been an structural problem that will really stop us from growing. It's just more like a Kit Kat. We have been dealing with problems for a couple of years, but the people is still there, the knowledge is still there. I really love what you said. And the last part on cooperation and the human beings having these motivations from inside, I really love it. So those are my takeaways. If you want to share anything else, now is your time. And if no, we are going to have another Impact Coffee with you, Paloma.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I speak so much.
No, that's so good. There are so many things that you have to share with us. Really, for us, it has been very, very enlightening. I hope it will be for all the listeners that we have in the podcast. And you will come back because there are more things about impact evaluations that we couldn't cover today and that we will later.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma, for being with us. Mwah. Ciao. Ciao, ciao. Bye.